The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Creating a culture of love.
You know, people think, oh, if you're not happy and swept off your feet, like you said, all the time, then this isn't working, right?
I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but
I know that there's conflict going on, and I know that there's always something. Do you think people are really doing the type of work that one needs to do for themselves to cultivate self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion in order to have a good, fruitful relationship?
Rosie Acosta back in the house.
Ooh, ooh.
Round 2. This is our special Valentine's Day edition. Episode 99.
Yes.
Going live on February 14th, the day after my birthday. So we'll call it a birthday episode too.
Oh, I love that. Happy belated.
Ooh, from the future. I like that.
Right?
I like that. Because we're recording this before. So anyway, today, you know, you've been on the show before. Everyone, go back to that episode. We'll link it up. It's great. But today we have a fun one, a special one. And we're going to talk about what love is not.
What love is not. This is a mouthful, I think. You know, it's interesting because I feel like you've built such a great community based on love, right? The actual definition. And I'd love to hear, you know, we'll talk about the different definitions of love. But I feel like for me, just being a friend and being a supporter and just being a fan, I love listening to this show, and I love the evolution from when you started from episode 1 to now. But the community that you've built with the ethos of love has been so beautiful to see flourish. And I feel like now more than ever, we need it so much. And it seems like the more time goes on, the more we need it and the less we actually get the experience of love. And I want to give a little bit more context on that so it doesn't sound like I'm just, you know, pontificating and words being word salady. I think that there's so many things going on in the world right now, and love is really not only just a panacea for all of that, but it's also an anchor. And I think that on a day like today, where we celebrate romantic love, I think the true meaning of love gets sort of put on the sidelines because we have this idea of what love is. And the reason why I think it's important for us to have this conversation or to discuss it is because I really do think that we're in a place where the true meaning of love is now so nebulous for us. It's so misconstrued. We think romance movies, we think roses and chocolates made out of little hearts, and we think of Hallmark cards and what have you, and that's not what love is. So yeah, I'm excited to be here again. I'm excited to be a part of this community. I love it so much, and no pun intended. Real love, not love.
Not love.
Not love. And yeah, I think this is a really important conversation to have.
Well, let's dive right in.
Shall we?
We shall. You know, you can also add there the misconstrued notion of self-love. Spa days and manicures. That's a whole other thing that's now
That's
getting...
self-care. That's not self-love.
I know, you're right. That's
yeah.
exactly.
Well, I don't want to say that either. I mean, it's so subjective, the notion of self-love. But I really, what?
Let's just call it surface level self-love. It goes much deeper than the manicure and the spa day and the massage. Because trust me, I love that too. And it is a choice of choosing yourself in that moment. But you're just at the surface.
Yeah. I think this is really the premise of the show, right? It's the surface loves.
Yeah.
The things that aren't really the substantial, authentic, genuine type of love. So here's one thing that I'm finding, and I'm curious if you're finding the same thing. There's so much pressure put on people in relationships, I'm going to say, or people looking for a relationship. So much pressure on Valentine's Day because we feel like we need to go to dinner with our partner, or we need to secure a date, or we don't want to be alone because there's this made up holiday that tells us that in order for us to be and feel worthy, we need to be with someone. And I feel like that's the beginning of the unraveling of maybe unmet expectations that we might have, or misconstrued ideas of what we think love is, and
Societal pressures.
I mean, I'm curious for you, like, what was your experience, your first Valentine's experience, where you could remember in a romantic context? How old were you, and what was it? Do you remember?
I'm going to go down to when I was a little kid.
Do you remember the little
Yes. So in school, I love Valentine's Day because we got candy and we collected these little Be My Valentine in a little like heart thing or whatever. And I thought it was like the cutest thing. And I can't wait for Remy, my son, to experience that. But in the dating world, I think early on I was and I'm a romantic. I am a romantic
Same.
through and through. So it's not about not being romantic, but I would tell him like, yo, I'm not into Valentine's Day. This shit's fake. Like, I would say it early on, and unless the girl was like, I love it, is my favorite day of the year, then obviously I'm going to show up also. But if somehow they align
But
and say,
doesn't that tell you something already, though? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but it's just, you know, to each their own. And I'm not saying you shouldn't love it if you love it. I think there's a lot of gaps in it. And I think it's going to come back to diving into the definition of love. And the dictionary, summing up all the various ones that I've looked at, basically says it's a strong feeling of affection. Yeah. So that's it. That's love.
A strong feeling of affection.
And that is not love.
Wow,
Like,
no,
if we
that's
start
not.
Unpacking it,
Yeah.
that is not love. And we use love a lot, and we commoditize love. Like, I love my Jordans, and I love that movie, and I love this food, and that's great. You can use it for all that, but that's an adjective. It's a 4-letter word, like saying, I fucking love this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what is love? How do we define it? I think it's undefinable because it can mean so many things into
Yeah.
the context of where you're at, what you're talking about. And Kobe Bryant has one of the most beautiful definitions of love that I love, that I like to share. And I say this in speeches, I put it out there, and I just think it makes sense. It sums it up. And what he says, he describes love as a beautiful journey. It has its ups and downs. Love is never perfect, but through love, you continue to persevere. Love is a certain determination and persistence to go through the good and bad times. And that, to me, sums it up. And especially when people decide to look at that huge mistake Kobe made and only think of him as that person.
Yeah.
But look at the definition. He persevered, put his family back together, did all the things, put in the work. Just there, it's not, your relationship isn't always roses.
Yeah.
You don't always feel a strong feeling of affection for your partner.
Right.
You know, like, we feel all
Ooh.
kinds of things, but
Yeah.
choosing to stay in it and work through it is choosing love.
Yeah. That's really good. Ooh, that hit. That hit. I think, wow. It's true, because I think of love in terms of, my definition is love is a verb. It's something that you do, and also it's something that you are. And my experience, you know, my first initial introduction to romantic love was my parents. You know, my dad is a singer. He's a mariachi singer, you know, so he's an artist.
Best up, man.
He really goes in, you know, he'd show up singing to my mom. He'd always sing to my mom with the flowers and the whole thing. And he's just a romantic. But to too much emotion, right? It was just, it was not met. My parents ended up separating when I was 10, but my experience of romantic love was all emotion. It was just any emotion that came up, you needed to share it. You needed to, express it. And there was no discussion of how do you solve conflict, right? Which is what you're saying. I mean, I love
Sweep me off my feet and keep sweeping me off my feet.
And keep sweeping me off. And I don't want to feel any bad things, because the moment I feel something bad, that means this isn't working and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So going back to the definition of the dictionary, good old wise Mr. Webster's dictionary, the strong feeling of affection. I've been in a relationship for 20 plus years, and that affection isn't always a strong feeling. I have other strong feelings, you know?
Like, you need a shower today.
Yeah. Or like, you need to stop chewing so loud, or stop sipping so loud, or why didn't you put the dishes in the sink, or why didn't you, we become really great at calling out people's faults. And I feel like one of the things that's happening right now, I have a couple of single friends that are out, looking for love in all the wrong places. And look, I'm no one to be judging what the right or wrong place is. But to me, if you're trying to find love and you're looking for just strong affection, you can find that. You can find that really easily. There's many apps that can even deliver you some of that affection, and I think it really, at the end of the day, comes down to people understanding what their own definition of love is. I think you and I have had this conversation before. It's like and we've both been in long-term relationships. How do you solve conflict together? Where do you go when you have the disagreements? How do you discuss this? Are you able to express your feelings in a coherent way, in a compassionate way, in a way that feels like you are striving for that love is a verb, love is what you are, and that connection that's going to continue to build on something stronger. People think, oh, if you're not happy and swept off your feet, like you said, all the time, then this isn't working, right? And I've seen a lot of really great relationships go and fall by the wayside because one of the persons, and I want to talk about the sort of balance between being met in a relationship, but one of the persons perhaps didn't feel like the other partner was doing 50-50, their 50%. And they felt like they were doing all the work, and they decided to leave the relationship, which again was a great, healthy, loving relationship. But because you believe that love for you is your partner doing 50%, then, you're going to lose out on something, a great lesson, the lesson being learning how to compromise.
But 50% of what? It's funny. In last week's episode, we talked about a little bit of this toward the end, and you both have to give 100%. Why are you giving 50%? And by 100%, I mean you give your 100% of the day. And if it happens to be 20 or 30 or 40 that day, as long as it's 100% of that 40%, it's not about 50-50 equal balance. Because sometimes, look, I will never be a mother. Don't have the equipment. So I can't even compare to understand the things that my wife goes through with being pregnant with my upcoming daughter and being the mother of my son. Like, I am a father. I have all those experiences. And to me, think that if we're going to think there's equality there, she carried him for 10 months inside of her. She birthed them. She was ripped open. Like, there is no equality. If anything, I'm in debt for the rest of my life. Sometimes I hear it too. I gave you a son. But like, this balance of equality, it's not there. It's the effort of like, I want to give you 100% of what I can give you at every moment. And that might not be 100% today, but I'm still here. And willing. And then there's a day that you're going to give more or less. And once you start realizing that and not keeping score, I think it doesn't get easier, but it gets easier.
No, but I think that the key here is, Ruben, is that you're communicating that. I think most people, the majority of people, don't communicate that.
But we have to learn that too, though.
Well, right. But how did you learn that? How did you learn that? How did you learn to communicate?
in a frustration, probably in a silent treatment, in a thing where I was mad or she was mad.
But did you learn it with Z or did you learn it before?
No, with my wife, with Z. Like, this is the longest thing I've ever been in my life. So we're going to learn so much
Together
as we change.
Yeah.
And I think the trajectory is if we're growing together and moving forward and continuing to be working on that path, it's fine. It's when when one stops working.
Yeah. Yeah. But the key is like you didn't give up.
Yeah.
You didn't give up. There's a resilience that is built with being in a long-term relationship and a long-term marriage. And I think that this is where people that are in relationship can speak to the truth behind the romanticized version of love. Because I know you didn't ask me what triggers me, but I'm going to tell you.
Rosie, what triggers you?
Thank you. One of the things that really bothers me when I'm out in the world, and maybe it's just the state of the world. I have a couple of friends that are single right now, and they're the ones that I'm saying are looking for love in all the wrong places. And, I really am grateful that I've had the relationship that I've had for as long as I've had. I've grown so much with my partner. Like, Tori is my world, and I love him so much. But man, there have been moments. I mean, we've had some breaking moments. We've never broken up, but I've come really close.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he has too. I mean, we used to work together. We'll talk about that another time. But this is an important thing to discuss, the reality of the dynamics of a relationship, because I have to tell my single friends, because they'll say, oh, you have it all figured out. Like, this is great. How did you find him? How did you get him? How did you keep him? How did this happen? How do you guys have so many things in common? Okay. And I really have to break it down and be like, this is really hard. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life, to compromise. And it's not always easy, and we bicker just like everybody else does. And by the way, I didn't find him. We found each other, which is another kind of point that we can discuss. But I think it's important for people to understand that because out in the world, out in the media, in movies, everything's so romanticized. You get to see the highlight reel of people's relationships. You get to see the anniversaries, the baby announcements, the engagement announcements, we're doing this for Valentine's Day. I'm sure everybody out there is going to see all the flowers and, my boo is getting me this, or I just got this love bracelet, whatever it is. And that's great. Good. I'm glad you're celebrating your love. For me, I'm just too much of a realist, where it's like, I know that there's conflict going on, and I know that there's always something that you can learn in your relationship. And I'm not trying to doom scroll on bad relationships. I'm not trying to get people to talk about all the bad stuff, but I really think it's important for people to realize that what you see out in the world isn't the reality. Like, you're not seeing what it's like to wake up in the morning and not have had your tea and have your partner try and talk to you. And I'm like, do not talk to me right now. I'm not a person. And, these little things are something you might say that hurts somebody's feelings, and how you reconcile that, and it's been many years of learning to have these conversations with people. And I think that it's important for people to know that when you're looking for that person, when you're wanting to meet somebody that's going to meet you and accept all of who you are, all of that comes with that. It's not going to just be the hot and heavy first 6 months where you're just like obsessed and you're in bed.
It's the lust phase.
It's the lust phase.
Not to mention, to throw something in, waking up next to each other, start making out, or don't talk to me. Morning breath. Go brush your teeth.
Right. I always see that in movies, and I'm always like, why are they, what? Why are they not calling this out? This doesn't happen this way. All the rom-coms that really are just like toxic, right?
Yep.
I watch so many movies where I'm like, that it doesn't happen like that. That doesn't happen. And that's not true. And I want to know the ending. I want to know what they're like now, 5 years from now, because you see these rom-coms where the girl wants the guy and the guy is whatever, not interested or with somebody else. And then he falls in love with her and then they're wanting to be together. And you see the man do the work to try and get back with the girl, or the girl finding ways to be his type of girl or whatever. And it's like, it's true. We do have to adapt to the person that we're with because we want to keep the person around. But at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. It's more about, are we compatible? Are we in alignment? Do you accept me for who I am, not who you think I should be or want me to be? You know?
That's that last part. But you said adapt, and adapting is okay. It's losing yourself or playing the chameleon.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of friends where they're in a relationship, they become the chameleon. They lose. Like, other than their name, you don't know who that person is. And I think when you lose your entire identity, that can be a problem.
And then you break up with the person and then you're so broken and you hear it all the time. I don't know who I am without my partner. I don't know who I've become. I don't know where to go. I don't even know what to do. Am I going to be alone for the rest of my life? Because they've lost who they are at their core. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things about getting into a relationship, when you don't know who you are and you don't know what you want and you don't know what love is. It's such an insidious place to be, because if you don't know who you are and you're not effectively in a good relationship with yourself, how do you expect to get into a good relationship with another person? I mean, you see this all day long.
Yeah, and that's the yourself part that you just brought up. And I'm going to use an example. You know, one of my worst heartaches and heartbreaks. This girl I was dating, and I always thought, like, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? Why me? This, that, all the wrong questions. Now, after doing the work and doing work on myself and learning and experiencing more life, I'm like, oh, she didn't love herself, so she couldn't receive love. Didn't matter how much love I gave. Didn't matter how hard I loved her. It would have always been that way. It had nothing to do with me. And I think sometimes we need to get over our own selves and realize, like, oh, it's not us, it's them.
Yeah.
Or in the context of, like, do I love myself? Am I ready for love to be able to receive the love?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's 100%. I didn't have a ton of relationships before meeting Tori, but I did have my first one that lasted way longer than it should have, but it was solely based on, and the reason why I bring it up is because it just reminds me of that same sentiment. Our relationship was based on how happy I could make the other person. How can I make this person happy? And they were happy to take that. They were happy to take my energy, my time, my
takers
spirit.
And givers. Yeah.
Yes, takers and givers. And I think that there's, I heard this quote once a long time ago, and it never, one of those little earwigs that just doesn't leave your brain. I remember it said, there are only two types of people, the people that love and the people that are loved. And it kind of made me a little bit sad, because I was like, well, which one am I? And if I'm a person that is loved, does that mean I can't love the person that I'm with? Or what if they're the person that are loved? Like, we're not going to be compatible. And I think it's wrong. I mean, I believe it in the way of, I think it makes more sense with what you were saying before, the sort of 50-50 thing. Like, what do I bring to the table? Because a lot of the times people are more focused on, how is this person going to fit into my life? What are they bringing to the table for me? Here's all my checklists, and I want to make sure that they make more money than me. They could take care of me, and they could da. And how are they going to enhance my life because I'm a catch, right? And it's like, okay, cool, that's great, but what is your value to this now person that checks all the boxes? And it's like, the ideal is that you check off their boxes as well. But how often does that happen? Rare, I think.
Where do you actually go ask the questions? Okay.
Right.
I'm a catch. Cool. Own that. Own that you're a catch. But then what do you bring to the table?
Right.
Some people just think,
Oh, I'm just a catch.
You know, this is it.
I'm a catch. I have 1 million followers.
So
I'm a catch.
it does make sense. Like, okay, you check my boxes. Hopefully I can check yours. And here's my things. Do they check yours?
I had one of my students, bless her, and I'm going to hopefully get this approved, sharing the story. I'm sure it's going to be fine. But one of my students went on a date with a guy, and they're at dinner, and he pulls out a list. He pulls out his checklist and just starts, do you like pets? Okay. Do you like to go out to the movies? Do you travel? She thought it was a joke at first. She thought it was funny. She started laughing. She was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. But halfway through the date, he's interrogating her. I mean, this isn't a questioning. Like, we're just getting to know each other. Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. This is an interrogation. What would you do if we got into an argument and I had to go travel and we couldn't talk for 4 hours because I was on a flight? No joke. That was one of the questions. Are you going to be texting me while I'm on the flight? Do I expect to take my phone off of airplane mode and see that I have some text from you? Or are you the type of person that's going to wait until I land? I'm like, excuse me? That was a real question. First of all, look, no judgment. Homie knows who he is. He knows that he likes to know things in advance. Bless him. I hope he has a really great and successful situation in his life right now. But for my friend, this was not for her. She felt very accosted and she felt very disappointed because this was somebody that she had been talking to for a long time. And so her and I did this work where I started to help her uncover what is the intention behind the list? Like, what is the purpose of a list, Ruben? Tell me why people make lists. Your friends, my friends, like why people that are single, just saying, looking for love. What is the purpose?
A few ways, and the few people I would talk to, it's because it keeps you focused.
Okay.
So there's a positive in keeping you focused. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Let me keep reviewing this so I don't get distracted. And I'm like, I align with that. That's cool. The other version, I think, it keeps you in the super narrow, tight funnel, and it actually detracts you from opportunity, from openness and everything, and so it makes you more rigid. So it depends on how you're looking at it as a balance. But if you start restricting everything, then you might wonder, why is it that you're in this position in the first place?
Yeah.
Be clear in who and what you want and who you are, but be open to receive that it may come in a different form, in a different person. Maybe they don't breathe the same way you breathe.
Yeah, right? So what you're saying is be clear, but be adaptable.
Yeah.
And that is a great way to make a list. Be clear, but be adaptable. Don't be rigid. The minute that you're rigid, you're going to turn out like our friend that was interrogating my sweet student.
There's also a right way to do it. If you know you have that list in your head over the convos, the text, however you ended up there, you can check these things off.
Right.
Getting to know someone.
Yeah.
Without playing true detective or whatever he was doing.
Yes. Well, apparently, because they did chat a couple weeks after that, she said, and apparently, because she asked him, hey, I'm curious why you felt so comfortable pulling out your list in the middle of our dinner.
Great way to ask that question.
And so he said, I got the idea because somebody I follow on a podcast that's a coach, a relationship coach, said that this is what I should do, or that's the recommendation that they were giving. And he sent her a link. He sent her a link to the podcast. She sent the link to me, of course, because I'm like, what? Who's out there saying bust out the list? You know, I'm just curious. And yeah, it wasn't necessarily as overt as homie made it. You know, like it wasn't as overt as coming out and doing his whole checklist. The way she described it to me, it was funny because she made it very dramatic and kind of funny and a little bit like aggressive. And I'm sure maybe it was that way. I don't know if it was or not. It doesn't matter.
It also depends how he delivered it.
Right. The delivery matters. But this person on this podcast gives dating advice and gives really, really actually sound, first date type of how to meet somebody and how to talk to them and stuff. So, and that was great. And this person, I'm like, oh, okay, how do I get around not saying the person's name? This person really has built a nice, solid following on how to help people get into relationships. My whole thing is, that's great, awesome. Relationship experts. So many are popping out of nowhere. And another, thank you for asking me what else triggers me, because I'm going to answer it for you right now.
What's an additional trigger, Rosie? 14 triggers in this episode.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I think for me, one of the things that bumps up against my heart is when I see people who have been in a relationship for 2 seconds and all of a sudden they're doing relationship courses or they're teaching about relationships, and all of a sudden they have the best relationship ever.
Oh man, yeah. The millionaire coach that's never been a millionaire.
Yeah. Exactly. The millionaire coach that's has not ever seen $1 million. The relationship, the new relationship expert that's had like 10 failed relationships, but this is going to be this is the one that he wants to do this like course, or she wants to do the course with. And I'm not slamming them. This isn't haterade speaking. For me, it bumps me the wrong way, because I feel like I've been in a relationship for 20 plus years and I don't know anything about a relationship. I know some things. I know a lot of the things that you and I have talked about. I know a lot of what not to do, but I really feel like there's a lot of disinformation out there with regard to relationships, and people out there saying that, oh, I learned this last week and now I'm teaching this to you. This is going to help you. It's a lot of disembodied information that's being sold to people. And I feel like, going back to my student and her experience, that's a result of people out there preaching unembodied information that maybe they thought this would be a good idea, but not actually went out and did it themselves, but they're telling other people to do it. It's like, you don't be in relationship as a concept. You be in relationship. So to me, how do we begin to bridge that gap so that people begin to really understand what the true meaning of love is?
$1 billion question. Do your background. Look at who you're getting information from.
Yeah.
There's this whole phenomenon. It's called the Facebook phenomenon. They did a study. People just flip the headline over and over and over, and it's just the tagline and the preview. They don't actually read the article. So the title and the tagline are just to hook you. And it might not even be what the entire article is about, but people take that as fact. And sometimes that's what's happening in any, here's the way to go viral on TikTok course, $99. Here's the...
But do you think that people are really doing deep work do you think people are really doing the type of work that one needs to do for themselves to cultivate self-love, self-acceptance, self-compassion in order to have a good, fruitful relationship?
Not enough people know.
I don't think so. But what?
I mean,
why is
myself.
that?
I could do way more work.
I could too. That's what I'm saying. It's like I feel that a lot of the. Go ahead. No, you go.
I think there's different levels of wants and needs that humans experience. Some people they work 9 to 5. They live for the weekend. They hate their life, and they get drunk Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and oh crap, it's Monday again. Oh God, here we go. And they live for the weekend again, Maybe they're just applying that concept in anything. And the thing is, we get to be gentle with everyone and not judge that. Like, if that's your true happiness, then awesome. I want you to be happy. So I don't know. I think some people don't even know they can do the work. They don't know there's more. They don't know there's deeper.
Yeah.
Which is why we watch rom-coms all day and think that's what we're trying to get.
Yeah. Tori and I were watching a movie it was not a rom-com, but it was like one of these, like sort of had a deep love story. And I was joking where just I'm kind of bantering. I'm like, oh, why can't you love me like this? Why can't you do that with me? And he's just like, how can I love you more? Like, how can I love you more? That was his question. But it hit in that moment. I was like, because he was really just saying it as a way, like, how could I love you more? Like, what else can I do to show you that I love you, right? But in the moment, I was like, wow, this is a deep question to ask your partner. How could I love you more? And instinctually, I went back into that mindfulness practice. How could I love me more? Like, how could I love me more so that I can then love my partner the way that they deserve?
That's it. That's our Valentine nugget for this relationship. How can I love me more so that I can show up and love you more?
Yeah.
Show up better to love you more.
Yeah. Or to
Also,
just love you.
There's another question. Second to that. How has my ability to love and receive love changed? How has my love language changed? Because when you started out, there was one way that you loved, and then 10 years later, there's a whole new way to love. And who knows when I'm 80, how I'm going to love.
Yeah.
So the question is, where have I changed in my relationship to how I love or how I'm receiving love?
Yeah.
Because it used to be little love notes, and it used to be this. Now it's just make the bed.
Right? Wow. That's so great that you say that, because the way you propositioned that just now made me believe that our love languages can change, and they do. They do. Most of the time we don't think, oh, my love language is acts of service and quality time, or my love language is physical touch and
words of affirmation. But I think that we embody and accept all of them. And I think that you're absolutely right. They do change, because in the beginning of a relationship, it's going to be one thing or two. And then after a while, somebody makes the bed and you're like, oh my goodness. Tori will put gas in the car. We share a car, and I'll get in the car and the tank is full. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I am obsessed. I call him and I'm like, oh my God, you're the best. I love you so much. You're so kind. Like, or if I'm making food, I make food. I'm the cook of the family. He has his like one or two dishes, but I'm the one that I make all of our meals. And still to this day, he's always so shocked. Like, oh, you made dinner? Like, oh, and I'm like, because acts of service is his love language. So I know if I do anything for him, he's going to feel that surge. And I want to serve that for him, and he wants to serve that for me. And I think that having that understanding of the evolution, because in the beginning it was not like this. And there's been times in our relationship where neither of us were having any love language connection. It was just like, you're lucky I'm still here. This is just, I am not into this right now. I'm not into you. And have said, I love you. I don't like you right now. Like, you're not my favorite person at this moment, and I also think that's healthy. And just going back to the conflict resolution piece, I really feel like first we need to solve that inner conflict within ourselves so that we can know and learn how to discern and solve conflict in our relationships. That's a nugget. Solve the inner conflict within ourselves to be able to better serve all relationships, not just the romantic ones. How you are at work, how you are with your friends, how you are with your children.
Because that affects you. Like, you're in a good place with your girl, or you're in a good place with your guy. What are your relationships like with everybody else? You're in a good mood. You're in a good place. You're feeling good. It's like, I compare being in a good place in your relationship like getting good sleep. Like, you get a good night's sleep, you're waking up, you're going to the gym, or you're doing your thing, and you're feeling like you get bad news at work, you get that email, you're like, it's all good. Like, everything's fine, But you get that one night of airplane sleep.
When my whoop strap says 90 in green, woo-wee, let's go. And
Hey,
then
let me ask you.
I woke up the other day, it was 17% red. I'm like, I'm dying. I'm dying right now.
How did you manage with when you had a baby, number one? Because I heard sleep kind of doesn't happen.
We were very blessed with Remy. He's a good
Okay.
sleeper. But you dig into the bank account and you get yourself a night nurse. Because they're not cheap. But,
I thought he was going to be like, Z and I, we dug deep. Like he's like, no, get a nanny. Okay, great. Awesome. Night nurse.
Yeah, night
I've heard
nurse.
this. I don't have kids,
But
but
we've opted for baby number 2 that, no, we can do this. Plus, it's just a lot of money. And of course, you come home with a baby, you're terrified. You're like, how did they let me leave the hospital with this thing? There's no manual. I'm still a baby.
yeah.
Who's taking care of me?
Yeah.
So, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But let's segue a little bit
Okay.
because this is great on relationships and romance and in the context of that. But let's talk about like sometimes we think love is a possession.
Oh.
We don't own our partner in a relationship. We don't own our children. We don't own our dogs. Like I'm going to go all the way down to pet. Like we think because we love something, we own it. It's ours
Yeah.
and we possess it.
Yeah. That's deep.
Where does it give you the title of the deed?
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think that that's why we're so heartbroken when they leave us and or when we lose somebody that we love, right? We feel like, how could you do this to me? How could you leave me? How could you take something that belonged to me away? We think of love as something that we need to hold tight and, even what I'm doing with my hands, it's like the squeezing motion, right? I'm just clenching my fists together. Like I want to hang on to it, or I just love something so much. I don't want it to leave, right? We don't want to lose something because we're attached. And so that's not the way to hold love. We hold love. We don't clench onto love. We don't grip onto love.
The
we don't.
harder you squeeze it, the faster it's gone.
Yeah, it's like trying to grip water. You don't grip water. You feel water. You put your hand into the water. You sense it. You observe. You experience it. And I think that that's probably a better way to approach love as an experience and something that is almost impossible to describe with words.
You hold space for love.
Yeah. Check.
Love is not always easy.
Love is not ever easy.
It's a choice. You got to keep choosing
Yeah.
it and choosing it and choosing it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think we forget. It's an active action.
Yeah.
So when it gets hard, you get to choose to love in the
Yeah.
moment, even though you don't want to have the convo, you don't want to do the thing, or you don't
Yeah.
want to, you're choosing it to continue to move forward.
Yeah.
And as long as you keep choosing it, it'll keep thriving
Yeah.
and surviving and thriving and surviving, even if you're on one hair,
Yeah. Even on your last little straw.
but you got to keep choosing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm into that. I used to think that I heard another quote, bad quote. I like to remember the bad quotes because the good ones, there's so many good ones, but the bad ones really stick with you. It's like the losses, right? You really
Yeah.
remember the losses. There was this quote that said, to love is to suffer, right? So I saw this and I'm like, oh, yeah, because you suffer because it will end. At some point, your love will end. It will die. It will wither away like a beautiful rose, and that'll be it, And so it is to suffer. It's the whole idea is practice non-attachment. But I decided I didn't believe that because you do suffer in relationships sometimes. It's not always easy, like you said. But to love is to live. Right? To love is to live through love, right? I mean, that's the premise of it. Is Love is our ability to live and to thrive and to continue to do that cycle over and over again until we can't. And I think that's a better way to be and a better way to live.
Yeah, love is to suffer. Like, I don't understand that, because you could be not in love and suffer because you're not in love. You could be in love and you suffer. I think it's just how you're viewing that lens. And if you're choosing love and looking at it from that lens, I don't think it's suffering. It just takes work and there's a struggle.
Yeah. Perspective.
Exactly. It's the perspective.
Yeah.
But I used to go, when I was painting murals, ask people, just random people, what is love? How do you define love? Before podcasts, this was years ago. I have all that content somewhere.
We should put it, B-roll.
I know. And people are just like, love is a sacrifice. Love is a martyr. Love is, I'm like, the amount of people, and usually it comes more in the religious context, which I could understand, like Jesus sacrificed and all that.
Sure.
Because he loved us so much. And, you know, and I'm like, okay, that's a version of what love can do. But like, if you're just sacrificing yourself 24/7, 365 in a relationship, then that's why love is to suffer. So, but it's not a sacrifice, because no one's thriving when you're sacrificing.
Yeah.
And this isn't just romantic love. This is, I've heard people tell me like, yeah, I can't buy one of your hoodies because like everything goes to my kids and nothing goes to me. I just sacrifice so much. I can't do self-love. I can't go to the gym. I have no time, so I'm overweight and unhealthy. No, those are all choices though. You might not have the optimal time for anything, but if you got 10 minutes to do some burpees or choose a different piece of food that you put in your mouth or make the effort to give yourself the more time. Again, it's the choices. And I know we all don't see that. And it's up to us to hopefully open the door or a window or a hole for someone to see that opportunity and be like, no, you don't have to loving yourself is a better way to not only show up in love, but like, what are your children experiencing? They're seeing you sacrifice, and then they're going to go create the same thing in their
pattern.
life.
Yeah.
Love is not the cure-all. Just add a little more love. Sprinkle some love on top of that. Woo! You're all healed. Where is his, like, is there a button that says
the love doesn't cure the internal stuff that we just talked about. I mean, okay, so let's put it into context. Me finding somebody that I fall in love with, love at first sight. Now people call it anxious attachment. Back in the day, we used to call it love at first sight. You find somebody that you get with, and then all of a sudden your problems are still all there. It's not, you thought that getting with this person is going to cure everything that's going on. No, it doesn't work that way. Right. So where is that internal reflection? Did you spend some time with yourself, getting to know yourself, cultivating that love within yourself in order to show up in a relationship, to provide value? Right.
Also look at the same lens. If you're hopping from gal to gal, guy to guy, and what's the common denominator? The same problems are going to show up in every relationship.
I used to tell this to my dad all the time, because it's like he would date the same type of gal, same, look the same, dress the same.
He had a type. And oddly enough, they were all different than my mom. My mom was, very different from the type he was dating. And, I would say, like, these keep ending because you're going for the same type of lady. And do you not see that he's like, oh, well, these are the only people that I'm around. So it's like, okay, it's your environment. Then let's look at your environment. You're wanting to find somebody that is going to provide a long-term partnership with you, but you're not hanging out at places where you're going to find that. And so he didn't change it. You're good at getting flings.
Yeah. And his excuse is like, well, I'm not going to say that on the podcast, but he has and will always love just one person. So, maybe anything's possible.
But it's not a cure-all. And, I paint love around the world, and people are like, oh, you're going to change the world by painting love. These are things I hear all the time. Like, yeah, And I'm not saying I'm the cure. I'm inviting people to choose love, to lean into love, to live through love, make it the choice. And if that opens all these things up, yes, eventually it is the answer. But ultimately, and I have a shirt that says this, I say love is the answer on it. Underneath, I have it screen printed that most people can't see. It says, yes, you are. So I'm really saying you're the love. When you love you, that's when everything happens.
Yeah.
And if love is the answer and you love yourself, you're the answer. So I'm really saying like we're all the answer to all this. And it does come from leaning and choosing love.
Yeah, 100%. You are the love that you're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
You are the love that you seek. And, you know, this was a show that we wanted to talk about what love was not. And love is not resting on another person, in another purchase, in another drink, in another travel. It's present within yourself. You have to just go in, you know?
Yeah. Love is not one size fits all.
Oh boy. It really isn't, is it?
It's not Matthew McConaughey shirtless on the beach. You know?
I mean, for many it is. He did have a very successful career.
He did.
Doing that. I think it's going to go back. I'm going to go back to the discernment piece. I think a lot of the answers that we're finding with regard to love have more to do with our ability to look within ourselves and examine what we value, what makes us happy, what brings us joy, what do we want to bring to the table. It makes me think of Mark Nepo talks about this in the Book of Awakening. I've talked about this before. It's one of my favorite sort of pieces that he wrote, where he's talking about a healthy relationship and what that is, you know, talking about love and, you know, all these different things that are part of being in a relationship. And it says, I know I'm paraphrasing this, but essentially is, I know I'm in a good place in a relationship when all of who I am is welcome and all of who they are is welcome. I'm not trying to change, impose. I'm not trying to project any of my stuff on this person. I will accept them fully as they are. They will accept me fully as I am. And when you find that, you're lucky. That is gold. That is your moment. That is your person.
Yeah.
When all of who you are is welcome, I mean, that is, and that is also unique to people. That is unique to me. It's unique to you. It's unique to, you know, all of our friends here. We need to be able to find that. Again, doing the self-inquiry, to be able to discern that within ourselves, so we recognize it when it shows up for us. Another thing, just on the same topic, Tori was telling me he was reading a famous rock star's biography. He loves to have him playing when he's like working in the shop and stuff. He has them on Audible, like it's just playing. Thing. Yeah, it's like you just listen to books all day. And I can't remember what rock star said this, so maybe we can add it in the show notes after the fact. But he was saying, we're talking about love. We've been talking about love a lot because we have a handful of friends that are divorced and single in our lives. And well, it's a separate story, but we have a handful of friends that are divorced and single, and this has been a topic of discussion. And the quote said, "True love is not wanting to cause suffering to the person that you're with." And I loved that because, wow, that is true love. I love my person so much. I want to do everything in my power to not cause them pain, to not cause them suffering, I'm not saying, No, I'm not saying I want to take their pain away. I want to cure them. I want to not let them ever feel pain. I don't want to be the cause of that. So I will do everything in my power to make sure that I don't cause or inflict pain on the person that I love. So I love that so much.
And that's something you could actually take responsibility for.
Exactly. Goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. You know, accountability. It's like, I'm able to do this. This is what I'm capable of doing right now. This is how much energy I have. I've got 20%. I've got 50%. I've got, love it.
Yeah. No, well said. So love is not one size fits all, right? There's diversity in love. There's diversity in relationships. There's cultural differences.
Oh, yeah.
I just think let's not compare our love to someone else's love. Just be your love. Have your love. Own your love. And that's it.
You're my guru now.
Your guru's guru.
My guru's guru. Love that. I don't have anything else to say to that.
No? Awesome. Well, this has been great. We have talked about love on this special Valentine's Day episode. We've gone through defining romanticism versus the reality, the fact that love is not a possession. We cannot possess it, squeeze it, grab onto it. Love is definitely not always easy. It is not roses and rainbows 24/7, 365. It's not the cure-all. It's not the, you don't sprinkle love and like, hey, problem solved. Doesn't happen. And love is not one size fits all. So let's just worry about our own love and how we do it.
Boom. Love it.
Yeah. So, final question, and I've asked you this before. Let's see how you answer it this time. Rosie, how do you define living a life through love?
I defined living a life through love by being compassionate. I feel like compassion, as the definition is, to desiring for the other's suffering to end. So if I have a desire for your suffering to end, that's me living in my fullest expression of love.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Where can everybody find you?
Everybody could find me everywhere. I hang out on Instagram most of the time. I teach on Headspace, the Headspace app. If you're listening, you can get 30 days free if you use the code Rosie30.
Boom.
Yeah.
Take advantage of that.
Yeah, do it. And yeah, that's it. Rosie Acosta everywhere. Find me. Tell me everything. Say hi. Don't say hi.
Slide into her DMs. Give her some love.
Oh yeah, slide into my DMs, but don't be weird.
Just say thank you.
Yeah, just say thank you.
And hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.